Welcome to today's show. I have a special guest. Every week I have a special guest. But today's guest is extremely special in the moment, mainly because he's an opera singer.
See, I thought you were going to go a different place with that.
and also, he's a retired police sergeant from the IMPD. Welcome, Chris Wilburn.
Hey, what's up, brother? I appreciate you inviting me. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
This
Thanks for all your hard work and policing and community service, man.
Those are some great years.
We appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because oftentimes we don't get that pat on the back.
Right. And not that you don't deserve it,
Right.
but I do feel that police officers choose to do what they do,
That's exactly right.
and they shouldn't expect much.
Yeah, in terms of
Gratitude.
accolade. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nor should they seek it.
Right. But can you give us a little background? Can you tell me where you're from?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's hear what made you choose a career in service.
That's right. So originally, I'm from the south side of Chicago. So I'm a stone's throw, I guess, if you look at it from
not far, 2 hours, two and a half. Yeah.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
And I had initially some reservations about service, but from Chicago, we were moved to Georgia. So believe it or not, I graduated from Stone Mountain High School in Georgia.
Okay.
And from there, I went to the University of South Carolina. I had a background in music, so I'm actually trained as an opera singer, believe it or not.
Right.
And I have that background there in singing, a tenor. Went on to Boston University to complete my master's. So at that time, I was all holistically involved in the arts.
Right.
And
so at what age is this?
yeah, so from an early age, I started really singing in choir at Pilgrim Baptist Church. And if people know their history, Pilgrim was like the central place where gospel music was birthed by Thomas A. Dorsey.
Whoa.
So it's pretty profound in terms of history of gospel music. But so I was singing in the choir at a very young age. And then it wasn't until about 12 or 13 that we actually moved to the South.
Okay.
And from that point, kind of got my education, played a little football for a bit.
Okay.
And then
you're a big guy. I can see you being athletic. All right.
It's hidden with all these kegs.
Your family, are they all musically inclined?
No, it's funny. The big source of entertainment for us back then was the upright piano. We all kind of tickled those keys for a little bit and played guitar. I have a guitar at home and a little bass at home, and it just kind of fiddling around with it. So that was a big main source of entertainment. But we all sang, and we all kind of grew up with that appreciation for music and appreciation for what sort of the feelings, the emote. To speak in the vernacular here, but it was a good childhood. We didn't have a lot of things, but it was the only thing that I knew.
Okay,
but it wasn't until the question you asked was what really brought me into policing, right? So I got married from my experience after completing my degree at Boston University, and literally, bro, within the first 6 or 7 months. Boom, we were pregnant.
Wow.
Not me, my wife.
Right.
But yeah, so it was crazy, man. And I think for me, what I didn't want to do, because I was raised by a single mother.
Okay.
I didn't want to be that type of guy or that type of father for my kids. So I was like, you know what, Chris, put your stuff on hold for a bit.
Yep.
What else?
You mean putting the music on
Yes,
hold?
that's right. Put the music on hold.
Yes, sir.
But I didn't realize that was my muse. That was my outlet because of the trauma that I'd experienced at a young age in Chicago.
Okay.
And that's a whole different tangent, bro.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was challenging. But I think for me, not having that male role model, with exception of like your coaches or your grandparents, most of us, right?
Yep.
So I said, I want to stop. I want to pause, put the brakes on this, and focus on really, really rearing some kids. At the time, I didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, and just kind of moved on that way, man. Yep. And then I said, well, what would be a place where you can really, really just put your flag down? And I'd always considered some sort of service in the military or some kind of nonprofit.
Okay.
And there was just like commercial after commercial on policing and firefighting. So I tried to go. I tried to get hired at IFD, man. But
Really?
everybody in
out of Boston though. Like,
Yeah,
So
so-
why did you pick
Right.
Indianapolis?
So we came from Boston, and I wanted to work on a doctorate. And so I was down at IU Bloomington, and I was singing in. We did a world premiere of Our Town. I was
Okay.
one of the leads there. The New York Times reviewed it. So that was really, really a pivotal point for me. And I thought from there, after completing that doctorate, 2.5, 3 years, then we
Yep.
were going to go to California because she wanted to go to University of Southern Cal to
As she
complete.
should.
Yeah,
Fight
right?
on, baby. Fight on.
I'm telling you, boy, USC is no joke. And
No
I've been to
joke.
California. I love it there, man.
Me
The weather
too.
is wonderful.
Yes, it is.
But that's not a knock on Indy. You know what I'm saying? But so from that point, it was like a whirlwind within that time frame. I was like, whoa, I was already in school, an assistant instructor at IU in Bloomington.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we were like, hey, newly married. You know how that goes, man.
Yes,
Eating
sir.
ramen noodles, beans and rice, and not
Yeah,
having the
slumming.
money. Yeah, brother.
Just trying to find a way.
Trying to find a way. And I think I'd always really wanted to serve. And then I saw these commercials and I said, I'll give it a try. So I put a lot of time and emphasis in really setting myself up for success and try to show who I really was.
Right.
And I applied for a number of police departments and I got offers from a lot of them. And I told my wife, I said, hey, look, whichever, strike while the iron's hot, whichever department says yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with them first.
Okay.
And so that's what I did.
Yep.
I didn't want to play games or try to, all the things that people do that they can do.
Like when choosing a department.
Yeah.
Because so
Yeah.
so that means you're talking about kind of when people try to find easier neighborhoods.
That's exactly right. Right.
Or areas
That's
to police.
that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you hit on that. And I'm not speaking disparagingly about those communities, but
Right.
policing in Indianapolis, policing in an urban environment, a bigger city, is different. And a lot of times, a lot of people who call the police, when the police show up, they don't look like them.
Correct.
And that is a hard thing. It's a barrier at first. So I was like, you know what? I can serve in the capacity. At times, the police department they were utilizing my voice to sing national anthem, and I didn't mind it because I said, hey, is it okay if I sing in uniform? And the reason I did that was because I wanted people, when they saw a black man in uniform, that the brother, he sings classical music, opera.
Right,
What?
right.
I mean, that's something.
You were breaking a lot of stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly. And
policing and opera.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
just singing opera.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And at the time, there was a very small percentage of brothers employed, but who had their master's degree, and I was one of them. And it was good, but there was a lot of jealousy and there was a lot of animosity geared towards me by my white colleagues who didn't even have a college degree at all,
Right.
in positions of power.
Mm-hmm.
And then that can toggle to a whole host of things, what's going on now with the Black Lives Matter movement. But so it was very, very exciting for me. So I kind of moved on from there, man. It just kind of, now I'm in law school. We'll talk about that later on. It's crazy.
Right. So
Time goes by fast.
I really want to get into the inner workings
Right.
of policing
Good.
in Indianapolis
Right.
and in general.
Right.
There are, I would say, there are levels, and there are a lot of different layers
Mm-hmm.
to being a police officer. I would say, right?
Correct.
It's kind of a fraternity.
That's right.
I scratch your back, you scratch mine,
Right.
and there's a term, like there's a thing that I always tell cops. Like, everybody always says it's only a few bad cops,
Right.
only a few, and I agree that there are a few people who are have malintent.
Mhm.
I think that policing is a very honorable job,
100%.
even though it's a choice,
Right.
but it's a very honorable job. And when we use that term, there's few bad cops.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand that to recognize that there are a few bad cops, that means that there's good cops that know there's bad cops.
Yes, that's right. That's good. This is good. Yeah, that's
And
good.
I want to know, like,
Mhm.
how does it feel when you are a good cop
Mm-hmm.
and you recognize a bad cop? Because from history, it's been shown that good cops are the ones that seem to disappear.
Yeah, it's tough. That's a good. Let's look at let's backtrack a little bit and let's talk about really how policing kind of evolved, where it came from.
Right.
Originally,
the history of police.
Yeah, originally police really started with slave patrol, and that was like, whoa, when people hear that. But that's the honest. That's the history of it. Yeah. So there was always this aggressor and this victim, and that type of mentality. The most vivid picture that people paint of policing when they look at the 60s and how police treated the civil rights movement. Yeah. But I think, like, if you look at the slave patrol, you look at the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, like these kinds of tactics and policing and brutality was made evident and really didn't come into clearer focus. And this is one of the, I think, the linchpin issues that really showed how law enforcement is really viewed within the context of the Black community was the Tulsa massacre.
Right.
You know,
when
that's exactly right. When you're massacring or you're deputizing citizens and giving them the legal authority and the impunity to go out and literally wreak havoc and kill people. Right. That's a problem. Right. The Constitution was established with no accountability. Right. So when you look at all of those things in the trajectory of where that goes, there's a huge disdain for police in general within the Black community.
Right.
You know, so that's where it goes. But the source of your question is very good, because there are so many subcultures in policing, many of which never really manifest themselves until there's a problem.
Okay.
You know, until there's a shooting, until there's an officer involved in activity that he or she shouldn't.
Right.
So there are a lot of good officers in there, but their voices are unfortunately drowned out by the negative environment that they're put in, the lack of accountability from the leadership. Most often it's the leadership who enjoy Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 jobs, who make 6 figures plus.
Just want to get home.
Yep. Shaking hands, slapping backs, and kissing babies. And the officers and the sergeants and lieutenants are out there interacting. Notice I didn't say dealing with people, but interacting with people at their lowest sometimes.
Yep.
And that is trauma. And that's traumatic for an individual to experience. So what I did was I tried to ask questions. Rather than be accusatory, I asked questions. Yep. And in those meetings, I would ask questions, but then I would get shut down. I would get like this sign or like cut, or, you know,
like
be
literally.
Quiet. Yeah, literally like, hey, you're just the patrolman. Whoa. First and foremost, I don't need this uniform to be a man.
Right.
I'm a grown man.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to speak disparagingly about you. Give me the basic respect of allowing me to have an opinion.
Correct.
And I think what really cripples a lot of police departments is the pseudo-military style.
Yeah.
It really cripples them. And here's what we forget when we talked about history. We talk about that. A lot of police departments were birthed by military personnel, and they brought over a lot of what we call general orders, rules, policies, and procedures that are, I'm not going to say a carbon copy, but they duplicate what you have now in common military
like they
service.
Treat their environment like a war zone.
That 100% right.
Yeah.
And when you have that type of mentality, it's tough to shake. It is incredibly tough to shake. Yeah. I know people are going to be like, but you've never been, there may be some listeners who are police and they're, well, you've never been in a critical incident before. Yeah, I have. And I've had to discharge my firearm. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
And I've been in fights, and it takes a toll on you.
Right.
You know, it takes a toll on you. But the challenge for a lot of police departments, and they don't want to come to grips with this, is there are very few conversations involved toward what I like to call mission-driven policing. Okay. And what that means is that, you can't leave an individual on a condition red. Red is it's the danger point. It's critical. Yeah. You can't leave officers on critical condition all the time. Right. And these men and women are seeing people shot, women stabbed, babies dying, and they never get to be removed from that situation. Oh. And so what ends up happening, when I saw that 8 minutes and 48 seconds, to me, with the nonchalant, with the lack of emotion in his eyes, I saw somebody who was wrong. Mm-hmm. I saw somebody who had no regard for human life. I saw somebody who was probably tired. I saw somebody who didn't listen.
Yeah.
All of these things kind of compounded and created the perfect storm. And I think that there was nothing perfect about that outcome, but I began to see from a lens that I lived myself, lived experience.
Right.
And so I think for a lot of people, they don't understand those subcultures. You have military thinking, I said, educated and non-educated.
Yeah.
Families who've been in policing for years,
Right.
who are expected to be commanders, or now even small cliques of people who move around
Yeah.
from different leadership positions or even testing to be promoted. There is no streamlined process. And what I mean by that is police profess to be subject matter experts in accounting, or subject matter experts in computing, or subject matter experts in social work activity. These are all of the things that police departments are doing today.
Okay.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered
when they need to just be policing.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And people say you hear the old adage, just kick back on the porch, prop your boots up, put a straw in your mouth and kick back, like the good old days. But now you need police to interact. You need to humanize law enforcement, and you need to have diversity in police agencies. You're going to hear people say defund the police. I was actually one of the individuals who said, defund, and that is a reallocation of resources. Right. To me,
you just talked about all the roles that police play. Right.
Yeah.
And what people don't seem to understand.
No, they don't.
They can't get past the verbiage.
Yes.
Defund.
There you go.
They're scared of the word.
Yes.
Just like they're scared of the word Black Lives Matter.
That's exactly right.
They're scared.
Well, you saw what happened. I mean, initially you saw federal senators, all lives matter. When you hear Black Lives Matter, it wasn't that nobody else's lives matter. It was Black Lives Matter too.
Right. And we just want to show y'all that we do care about our own lives.
Yes, that's exactly
that are being taken away without accountability.
That's exactly
what we want. Black Lives Matter is a show of accountability. We want people to pay for killing people that don't need to die. That's what I think Black Lives Matter means.
And I think that's exactly what it means in my view as well. If we look back at history from all of the massacres that have occurred, I think, and this, I can't prove this, but I think that people had just had enough.
Right.
I mean, there are countless instances where you see people of color completely demonized and thrown in jail and killed, and set up, and we know we're not novices in saying that Black people don't do anything.
No,
that they're not culpable. No, we're not saying that. Yeah. But the large majority of people now that are incarcerated have presented fractions of egregious behavior that deserve being incarcerated for the amount of time
that they receive.
I mean, it's unconscionable.
I mean, there's so many different things we can talk about with plea deals and cash bail and things that affect communities of color way more than other people.
But it starts with policing.
It starts with the policing, but and privatizing of jails, things like that, where they have to fill these places up. And it doesn't matter who you putting in there, as long as you're putting people in jail.
And I think you're hitting the hammer right on the nail. I know you are, because that's reminiscent of fugitive slave leasing.
Yeah.
Where you have a workforce that you can basically run in the ground, and you don't have to pay them anything. Now you have, I think of Jail 2, the Marion County Jail 2, right? Where you have complete families who have benefited and enriched themselves on the backs of people who haven't been rehabilitated, who haven't been given opportunities, who haven't been educated in the trades. Not to say that government is responsible for educating people when they're incarcerated. No, but what I'm saying is we spend an exorbitant amount of money on prison systems than we do on our educational systems, and it hasn't gotten us anywhere.
Right.
We're still at the same place. I would argue worse.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't accomplished what we thought we were going to accomplish. And I know, I give you this illustration. There are individuals in the police department when I first got on who literally I guess to say this just completely transparent, who literally sat on their butts all day and did absolutely nothing. And that was the goal. The goal was to do nothing. And then after the work hour, then you would go to what I call the part-time or off-duty employment, where you see officers parked and do. I wrote a case study on off-duty employment, and I used as analysis New Orleans Police Department right after Katrina. FBI came in and they did this huge case study of why the New Orleans Police Department they were in the predicament that they were in. And the majority of their analysis and conclusion, the hypothesis that they came up with, is that they were dysfunctional because you had patrol officers who were employing captains or higher, because the patrol officer ran the off-duty employment, and the off-duty employment per hour, if you were a captain, was $55, $65 an hour. Right. So what does that mean? You're a supervisor on this individual officer's day job, but now he's your supervisor on your extra money. So you're going to overlook a lot of things that he or she does during the day, because it's going to impact you financially at night. Right. And I think my conclusion was like, have a body of citizens run the Office of Off-Duty Employment, because the equipment is not yours, it's the city's. Yep. The uniform is not yours, it's the city's. They allow you by oath to be put in the position that they can't do themselves, or they trust that you can do it effectively. And the goal of that individual who I was talking about when I first got on, that was his goal. He was making probably double or more from his part-time job than he was during his day job. And that, I know, the people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about audits in terms of auditing a personnel. Where's a physical body going? Where is he or she? Right. They don't want to talk about it. Indianapolis hasn't done it. Okay. We haven't even audited the IMPD. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. You see how this can be ripe with dysfunction. Yes. It can be ripe with dysfunction, and it is.
Because not doing an audit doesn't keep people accountable at all.
There's no
fear of location. There's no fear of anything.
That's exactly right. So the only accountability is internal affairs, or the only accountability are the general orders,
which I don't agree with.
What the police control.
Right.
And see, so the general orders, this big hoopla that the council wanted to have civilian oversight on the general orders, the policies, and that was a good attempt. Now that was good, that was admirable, but that won't solve the challenge, because then you can craft, those are those sub issues that we talk about. What's the culture inside of the agency? Yep. How do people really function? And what I see and what I saw then is compartmentalization. Mm-hmm. Now, in some ways that's good, but in some ways it's very bad, because as you said, there is no oversight.
Right. We need oversight. That's wild. So let's get back to defund.
Right.
Okay. As a police officer, you guys wear many hats. I've had conversations with police officers I'm close with, and we talk about how they'll get a raccoon out of some tree, or they get attacked by dogs, and they gotta open people's car door because they lock their keys in when there's locksmith that we pay for that.
Right.
So to make sure police are policing and we're lightening the load for them, that is essentially defunding police.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think I was laughing and chuckling because I've had to do all of those. Right. That's why, I wasn't laughing that out, but I've had to do all of those.
Yeah, but those are all things that I've heard that they do. So, I mean, and I'm guilty of that same thing. I heard one time that I could call the police, and they would open my car door, and I don't have to pay.
Right, exactly.
And it happened.
And I think that was part of the whole community policing strategy, where you really got to know your officer, and you really, he or she was vested in your community. Yep. Let's look at NYPD, for example. They have almost 30,000 police.
Right.
But one officer, his or her beat may be a building. Right. You know what I mean? Now you have officers who are stretched so thin, incredibly thin, right? I think it's problematic when you ask them to, first of all, I think it's problematic when police departments don't control their run load. Here's what I mean. The Marion County Sheriff's Department runs the radio. So they create a policy that says an officer shall respond to a run
Yeah.
And the IMPD is the agency that shows up. So how does that work? It doesn't. So then you have supervisors. I had to do it, and I would disregard officers going to take a run that an officer shouldn't have even been dispatched to.
Right.
But here in Indianapolis, as part of the merger between the IMPD and the Marion County Sheriff's Department, the Marion County Sheriff's Department ended up with the radio. So now you have an agency who has their own policies and procedures and culture,
Yep.
another police department who has their own policy, procedures, and culture, trying to meet a citizen in the middle. How does that work? It doesn't. And these are things that people do not want to discuss.
Right.
They won't want to discuss it because it's a political maneuver. They don't want to discuss it because people might get offended. You just don't know. Listen, policing should not be political, but we have made it political. Notice I said we. When you have the national FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, endorsing Donald Trump on the cover of their magazine, that's problematic on a lot of levels.
Yeah, it is.
Because now you can't segregate yourself from the man.
Right.
When it appears from all the evidence that we've heard and read that January 6th, that was an incitement on his part.
Correct.
So now you as a national FOP have endorsed this man who claimed law and order. Those worlds don't mix.
No.
They don't mix. So now you have officers responding to runs that they should not be responding to.
Right.
And they've actually, if you look at our history in IMPD, we've objected to it. We didn't want to be responsible for felons. This you hear felons getting out of jail. Now we're responsible for tracking them and doing this. And
that's what the sheriff do?
Yeah,
He does,
well,
right?
yeah, that's exactly right. But IMPD now has a function of because they want to reduce recidivism. Well, why is that? we haven't any clue what goes on sociologically with someone who's been incarcerated.
Yeah.
That's not our function.
Yeah.
That's someone else's they're subject matter experts in that area. Why are you investing? I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Why are you investing in that type of resources, those money? Because police are the cheapest and they're the most visible part of government.
Yep.
It costs a lot more to have social workers or occupational therapists or psychologists.
Yep. I've heard that LA is working out a lot of things, having therapists on duty. They have social workers on duty.
100%.
And I mean, when you defund, you can move those funds towards those people.
And you can get police out of civilian jobs that shouldn't be there. Listen to this. And this is and I said this on a Facebook post, and I got a lot of pushback from police officers.
I'm sure.
And I got a lot of pushback in the sense that they were trying to silence me from communicating with the media because I was a public information officer at one point.
Yep.
And so now you have a chief, an IMPD. This is now an IMPD chief making 6 figures who runs the radio